All right, y'all, I'm back. So I'm going to be talking about the new format, Regulation H. I think it is really interesting, and this video is mainly for people who are a little bit newer to VGC or people who are trying to get more ideas going into it. And yeah, I'm just going to talk about it and then go into Showdown to talk about all of the threats and all of my ideas over it. Okay, so this format basically bans all legendaries, all paradox mons, pretty much everything that was broken in previous formats. We don't have Moltres, as you see, none of the legendary birds or dogs. That was kind of weird to say. But yeah, none of the primals, pretty much none of the broken stuff. And I think this is really healthy, like no Urshifu, no Calyrex, no Fluttermane, no Chiyu. Yeah, the Treasures of Ruin are also gone. And it's going to be a much lower power level format. And I really like these formats because it allows much weaker mons and a lot of really creative strategies to show their face. So you can go online, look at all the mons that are banned. I'm not going to talk about them too much. Just know all the legendaries, all the paradox, all the treasures of ruin are gone. Ogre Pond is also not here. Raging Bolt is pretty much taking a break. And yeah, it's really interesting. No Terrapagos. And I kind of wanted to just talk about, oh, no Reggie Drago either. It's really big. And I kind of wanted to just talk about the main threats going into this format. So going into like day one, basically, I think these six are something to keep an eye out for. As soon as it was announced, I think everybody kind of accepted the fact that Dondozo is going to be back. Dondozo is really insane. With Tatsugiri, if you throw it on the board next to it, it gives +2 to Dondozo, and you can't hit it. So it just kind of like he gulps it and he gains +2 to all of his stats. Can't really intimidate it because of Oblivious. It has Unaware as well. So into the Dondozo mirror. So if you're facing a Dondozo against you, then you're just playing a slugfest or you're waiting the whole time. And it's really annoying. But overall, Dondozo gets a lot better because in the past, stuff like it was just too powerful. There was stuff like Fluttermane that would hit it really, really hard. Stuff like Miraidon was really annoying for it. Um, and yeah, Calyrex as well, because they would just like cycle in, intimidate, and a bunch of fake out mons. You'd be forced to protect, and stuff like Dark Urshifu is really annoying. So you'd be forced to protect, or you'd be faked out, and you're constantly being pressured by these really strong mons. But we don't have that anymore. So Dondozo has a lot better time walling. It's usually going to run leftovers, something like Order Up to start sweeping, Protect because it runs the leftovers, Substitute for the Amoonguss, and something like Wave Crash or Waterfall for the most part, some water move. And it would just do a ton of damage and just kind of sit there and be really hard to kill. Waste all your resources, and yeah, 2/2/2 Dondozo is where you have Dondozo plus a bunch of good synergistic leads to go with it. So it'd be really hard to kind of like lead against it. You would have to sequence your moves really well. So Dondozo gets buffed. It pretty much is a legendary in of itself once it gets the stat boost, which is insane. Tatsugiri is also kind of interesting into this format. As you'll see, there's not as many powerful fairy types. With the loss of Fluttermane and Raging Bolt and Calyrex, which would like to fairy Terra, you wouldn't have that many fairy threats just sitting on the board. So this becomes a lot better for dragon types. You can do Draco Meteor. This thing has Icy Wind as well. And I think Tatsugiri as a threat will be a lot better with Scarf. It still has a respectable 120 base special attack. The other threat is Ursaluna Blood Moon. It's also basically a legendary stat wise. This is pretty much the Calyrex of this format, where once it has Trick Room up, it can get a Helping Hand, Terra Normal, Life Orb. It'll just boost a bunch of stats. Well, not stats, just a bunch of damage. 252, and then Hyper Voice would spread sweep your team. and it would be really hard to deal with. I think this is going to be really powerful, this format. It just has an amazing display of power behind Blood Moon. Earth Power allows it to hit the steel and rock types that would resist it. And overall, it's going to be a really big threat, I think. It's just basically a legendary. Amoonguss will always be good, something to consider on any team. The biggest thing Amoonguss has is Spore. Spore allows you to put a threat to sleep, so it pretty much buys you a turn against a lot of really powerful threats. And it pretty much checks both Ursaluna and Dondozo in a way. Dondozo doesn't like being spored, so it's forced to run Substitute, normally something like a Grass Terra, to get around it. So Moongus can force your opponent in these really weird spots just by existing. Great typing defensively. Rage Powder is amazing. It's basically follow me, unless you're a grass type. And then for some reason they gave it Pollen Puff, so you can pretty much get in these positions against people where you can just keep healing your teammate if they don't do enough damage and can win games off of that. Regenerator plus Citrus Berry makes it really hard to kill this Mon. Citrus Berry makes it really consistent, and then it has great HP and good enough defensive stats too. So Mungus will be really good, and I think because of Palafin, Dondozo, and Amoonguss, I feel like Grass Terra will end up being the best Terra, at least to start. It's just so good into a lot of these top threats. Incineroar will always be good, even though the power level is lowered. It felt like a necessary evil in Regulation G, where Calyrex was everywhere, both forms, and it would be really good into those. Still think Incineroar is really strong. It just has the best move pool. Fake Out, Knock Off. It also has Parting Shot. You can even run Throat Chop to deal with the Hyper Voice and opposing Incineroars. And Assault Vest is also really cool too, because you can pretty much resist. I think this is kind of a soft Ursaluna counter with the Assault Vest and Throat Chop. You can still always go Safety Goggles and the regular old set of Parting Shot. It even has Taunt to deal with the Amoonguss, so it can be an Amoonguss counter. You can build Incineroar to either check Ursaluna, Amoonguss. It's also decent into Dondozo because of Fake Out and Parting Shot. So you can run it anyway, but I think Assault Vest will probably pick up and play just because of the good amount of special attackers in this format. It's going to be really, really solid. So you got Throat Chop, and then you have usually U-Turn on these types of sets instead of Parting Shot. Well, already a U-Turn. And I guess Flare Blitz. Yep, Incineroar will still be really, really good. Especially with Grass Terra, I don't think this guy is going anywhere. Oh yeah, and also has a Helping Hand in this generation, so that's really good, depending on how you want to build it. It's the perfect support Mon. Alright, the last one is Palafin. Palafin is still really good. It's basically a legendary with its stats. 160 attack is insane. That's, let me see. I think Calyrex was 165, this is 160. Back then, Palafin wasn't very good because Urshifu existed, and you really didn't want to spend a turn switching out. Let me go with the base form. So you would have to switch this out, and then you'd get it in the next turn. But that was kind of really bad into Calyrex forms, because they would spend a turn just to set up Trick Room with Calyrex Ice, or Nasty Plot with Calyrex Ghost, and they would sweep your team. So you really didn't want to give turns for free. And Urshifu was right there, and it was basically just as good. But going into this format where it's a little bit slower, it's going to be a lot better. It just has so much power behind it. Jet Punch is a priority move, and it's really crazy, especially with Choice Band. It would be really, really good. And it also has a good move pool. It has Close Combat. You can go Bulk Up, which is really cool. Why does it have Draining Kiss? That makes no sense. Drain Punch. You can go the good old Choice Band set with Terra Water and Jet Punch to get the most amount of damage possible. Or you can go with the more defensive Bulk Up, Drain Punch. You'd have Wave Crash as well as an option, and it just does a lot of damage. So Even has Iron Head, Outrage. This thing has a really good move pool. Has Taunt as well. I don't think you'd use it on this sort of mon, but it just has a ton of potential. I can see this being really good on balanced teams. You can go Palafin, Ensign, Amoonguss. Amoonguss redirects the grass and electric types that would hit Palafin. But and Incineroar allows you to U-turn on. You can switch this thing out, and then U-turn on turn 1 to get it out on turn 2. So something like this, you could probably go Rillaboom as well for similar results. But I see this being a really good balance core, as it was back in Regulation. Was it C? C or B, one of those two, where Palafin was really, really good. So I can see this being really good. It just has great stats and a lot of powerful moves it can use. Some other top threats to think about. Mouse 8 makes a return. Back then, you would just use Friend Guard and Follow Me. This thing also had Beat Up, and you would pretty much just hit Annihilate. It was kind of similar to Whimsicott Terrakion, if anyone remembers that, where you would use Beat Up, and then you'd build up Rage Fist, and you would just do a ton of damage. This is really good into certain slower teams where they can't kill it turn 1. It wasn't great back then because, again, Fluttermane would just have spread moves. There was a lot of spread damage with Calyrex, so it was just too powerful for it to live. But in a format like this, it's definitely a lot better. And Mousehold is just still a great mon with Friend Guard and Follow Me. Population Bomb does a lot of damage, especially with normal Terra, so don't discredit it. And Mousehold is also very fast. And it also has Super Fang. So it's just a great support mon in general in this format. And it's just really good. It depends on what item you want to use. But Mousehold Annihilate is a great duo. Annihilate can also run Bulk Up. There's also less fairy types in this format it has to deal with. And there's not too many ghost types that are going to threaten it. Overall, I think it's going to be very good. Defiance really good because there's quite a few Intimidate users in this format. So you can't even just use Incineroar to lower its stats. Overall, I think this duo will definitely make a return. Dragonite is really good. Extreme Speed with Terra Normal is awesome. And you go Choice Band as well. And with Inner Focus, you can't use Incineroar to stop it. Back then, Dragonite Xianpao was very powerful, and Extreme Speed would just wipe games if you weren't prepared for it, or you had a Farigiraf or something. Really good, but now it's still pretty good. It's just not insane because of Xianpao. Although you could probably run, let me see, Stonjourner? Oh, yeah, you could probably do that for similar results, but it's still going to be a great mon to just put on teams. Basically has legendary stats, as you're kind of seeing a trend. It has great stats. Let me put Pelipper back here before I forget. Great stats. Choice Band, Extreme Speed has a great move pool with Aerial Ace. Maybe not that free, because there are some ghost types still in the format. But it's a great mon to just sweep the game, and there's not too many ghost types you have to fear. Because back then, Fluttermane was everywhere, and if you locked into Extreme Speed, then Fluttermane or Ghost type would come in late game, and you were kind of just screwed. But now it has more leeway to do what it wants. And it has still a good move pool. It has Outrage to do a ton of damage. There's not as many fairy types in this format. It has Fire Punch, Thunder Punch. Why does it have Safeguard? Stomping Tantrum. It has a really good move pool, and you can't intimidate it either in decent bulk. You can still go multi-scale, but Instant is still going to be a big thing in this format, so it's up to you. Gambit, I think, is kind of a gatekeeper. It's another Defiant Mon that's really good. Especially with Assault Vest, it can survive Blood Moon or Saluna, which is pretty nice. Sucker Punch kind of stops stuff like Annihilate from going really, really crazy, or at least forces it to Terra. And there's a few other really threatening ghost types in this format that we'll talk about later, like Goldango and Hisui and Hisuian Typhlosion, and Sucker Punch can really put a stop to that. Sword Stance is really good. Just has great stats in general, although you have to patch it up on the special defense side and its HP a little bit. It can also be a great anti-Trick Room mon, which is really valuable in this format where there's a lot of Psychic types and also Fairy types that are trying to set up Trick Room. So Gambit is really versatile, and it can be a check to some of the more popular mons, and it has good stats. Rillaboom, there's not much to say. Grassy Surge is really good to stop some of the Expanding Force users of this format. Assault Vest is also really nice into Blood Moon and some of the other special attackers of the format. It's basically just Grass Incineroar. U-turn, Fake Out, does a ton of damage with Wood Hammer, and it also has good utility with Taunt if you want to run that set with Grassy Seed. Oh, not Grassy Seed, Miracle Seed. And overall, it's just really good in general. There's not much to say. It's Rillaboom. It's a great balance mon. Has knockoff. Yeah, it's just really good. Pelipper, I think, will also see play. Pelipper is a mon that makes good Pokemon even better, like Palafin. And with the loss of Raging Bolt, Palafin and Pelipper could definitely get a boost. And rain teams might be a little bit better. You have Wide Guard to deal with Ursaluna. Ursaluna can only really hit you with Blood Moon at that point, which is really nice. You can go Wide Guard. It still has Weather Ball to hit Incineroar, Hurricane to hit Amoonguss. Depends on whatever item you want to use, but it's still really good. Has Helping Hand for support. Has Tailwind. It's just going to be a really good weather setter. And Drizzle makes a lot of other mons better. And it shuts off stuff like Sand, which I think won't be too bad this format, as well as Sun from Torkoal. So definitely worth considering. Usually run like Focus Sash, although you probably don't want to run it this time around, because last format you just wanted Pelipper to be alive and spam Wide Guard, even if it's at 1 HP. So this format you can probably run Rocky Helmet. Maybe not. I think you can be a little more flexible with this item. It doesn't have to run Sash as it used to. So yeah, these 8 I think are worth considering building against, at least really early on in the format, and I think will be really popular throughout Regulation H. So definitely keep them in mind. They're all really powerful. So I think Trick Room will be really good. Trick Room is going to be really powerful going into this format. There's just so many ways to run it. Farigiraf is really good into Dragonite. It sets up for Ursaluna, both of the forms. And it blocks priority from Incineroar. I think this will be a really easy, strong archetype to start with in the format. You go Farigiraf, Ursaluna. Oh, wait, the other one. But yeah, you can go Farigiraf, set up the Trick Room, give it a Citrus Berry, and then whatever Terra you really want. Can also hit Amoonguss really hard with Psychic, which is really cool. And I think going into this lower power level format, I think you can start to run Life Orb again and Hyper Voice. It can be a little more offensive. Farigiraf needed to be more defensive back then in order to survive legendaries, but now it doesn't really have to anymore. It just wants to set up Trick Room and do damage. Life Orb is still really good. Armor Tail. I just did Flying Terra Blast to synergize with Ursaluna, just as a fun concept. But yeah, definitely a good Trick Room user to start with in this format. It's really good. Let me see. It has Ally Switch, which can be something. Has Dazzling Gleam, although since there's no Dark Urshifu, I don't think it'll be as bad. You might consider Fire Terra to deal with Golden Go, which is pretty nice. And you can also run Safety Goggles if you really want to just shut down Amoonguss with Psychic. Safety Goggles, just be a pure Amoonguss counter. So, Fire, or you can just go Grass. Let me see. Or no, you go Water to avoid Palafin and Golden Go. Ursaluna is still really good. You get Flame Orb plus Guts. If you burn yourself, you can't be put asleep by Amoonguss, which is really nice. So you can go Earthquake, you go Facade on top of it, and you're just doing way too much damage in this format. And it has great attack. Overall, it's just going to be really, really good, I feel like, going into this format. It's basically a legendary. It's the physical version of Ursaluna. It might even be better in some spots, just because it avoids Amoonguss under Trick Room, because it is slower. Amoonguss is slower. And you go like Protect. Yeah, you can run it with Farigiraf to stop Fake Out. It's just really good. I feel like there's not much to talk about it. It's really linear, but it's really strong. Hatterene, so we're going into Expanding Force. Expanding Force users are also another style of Trick Room you can use. Expanding Force with Indeedee is really strong. Originally, you could go Armor Rouge as an option for an Expanding Force user, but I feel like that's really weak into Palafin, and just Incineroar you don't hit very hard, unfortunately. Although you could go Meteor Beam and Power Herb as an option, so it's not bad. I personally like Hatterene a little bit more because of Magic Bounce, and you normally have to run Grass Terra on this to get around it. But at the same time, you could run like Follow Me and Safety Goggles on this. But it's up to you. They're both really valid. I just like Hatterene a little bit more. But back to Hatterene. Hatterene's really good because there aren't that many fairy types in this format, so having Dazzling Gleam is really nice on top of Expanding Force. And it just does a ton of damage with Life Orb, Magic Bounce, and it's really slow, so that's really nice for it. Indeedee can also be a great anti-Trick Room mon. Imprison plus Trick Room. It has Follow Me on top of that. You can go, and then you give it some move like Dazzling Gleam, usually. This is really solid. You either have to run Imprison or you have to run Helping Hand for more damage. That's kind of the dilemma you have to play with it. But overall, Indeedee is still a really good mon. Blocking out priority for Trick Room is amazing, and I don't think it's going anywhere. Gallade is still a really great attacker for Psy Spam because it allows you to hit dark types like Incin. Sacred Sword plus Sharpness plus the Clear Amulet allows you to pretty much just kill Incineroar with no questions asked. It is faster, 80 speed to 60 speed. So overall, it's still really worth considering. Trick Room just didn't really lose too much going into Regulation H, which I think is a really big deal. It didn't lose Gallade. Gallade also has Wide Guard for Ursaluna. Grass Terra plus Psycho Cut allows you to deal with Amoonguss as well. It's just another option. And on top of that, Trick Room, it's just another Trick Room user for the team. And then usually you run Torkoal and Lilligant. Great tools that it didn't lose, that Trick Room didn't lose going into this format was Torkoal. You run Specs or Charcoal. And you go Drought as a weather user and Eruption. So pretty classic concept. You set up the sun, and Lilligant with Chlorophyll can use After You as a lead, and it's really powerful. Or if you don't have it, you can send it in late game to just sweep teams under Trick Room. It's really up to you. So it has two means of speed control. Eruption, usually run Earth Power, and what else? You can run Solar Beam and Heat Wave, just in case you lose your HP. I think it's usually 248 HP, and then 8 special defense. And then you go, just be the slowest thing in the format, where you go plus, let me make this easier, plus, minus. It is slower than Ursaluna, and it's the slowest Trick Room mon that can sweep, so that's really valuable in a format where there's so many ways to run Trick Room. So, Lilligant Torkoal, you could probably run it on Dondozo as well. The thing with Dondozo is you can run any dual lead, So you could run it with Size Spam, where you go NDD Armor Rouge or Hatterene Armor Rouge, Torkoal Lilligant. We'll talk about other powerful duos later, but that's something you always got to think about is what powerful duos are there in the format that combo well with Dondozo for a 2-2-2 style team. Speaking of Trick Room still, we have some of the more gimmicky ones but can still be really cool. Bruxus has Dazzling, which is basically Armor Tail, and with Colossal, with the Weakness Policy and Steam Engine, it can pretty much sweep teams. I think this one will be really good on ladder as a surprise concept, or maybe during, maybe it could be good on a Dondozo team as a pair. I think it would be good in global challenges as well. So Bruxus use Aqua Jet, turn 1, can't fake it out. Can't fake this guy out because of Dazzling. And then it procs its Weakness Policy to give it +2 special attack and attack and +6 speed. So you could run it with Rock Slide or Earthquake, or you can go Heat Wave and some other moves. So it's pretty much up to you. This has been a strategy used in the past, and I think it could see use in this format. Oranguru is back. It has Inner Focus to deal with Incineroar or any Fake Out user. It has Trick Room and Instruct. This could be really good with Ursaluna. Could be really powerful with that. Just another Trick Room mon that can be very good in this format because of Instruct allowing you to use the move 2 times. Is there anything else that it gets? Usually run Protect and like Psychic, I guess. If I can spell. What does Shiny look like? Okay, that's better. So yeah, still a really powerful Trick Room mon. I could see this being used on some really gimmicky teams on the ladder or global challenges, so definitely don't sleep on it. Another thing you could use is Symbiosis and Normal Gem. With Ursaluna, you can go Symbiosis. No, wait a minute. No, you give this one Life Orb. Hold on. Yeah, so you give this one Life Orb and give Ursaluna the Normal Gem. That could be a fun concept. But I don't know how good it is, but it is really fun. But you can sweep teams with Oranguru Ursaluna. It's not bad. Telepathy is also there as well, if you really want it. I think Inner Focus is probably the most consistent with Citrus Berry, or you can go with Safety Goggles or Mental Herb. Whatever choice you want. Mental Herb is really good into Taunt. Mimikyu, I think, will also see play. There's not too many fairy types like I've said, but it's very good. Sets up Trick Room really consistently with the Mental Herb. And under Trick Room, Swords Dance with Ghost and Fairy coverage is really hard to stop. It's basically like a physical Fluttermane, and it has really good stats. Really good defensive stats. Maybe its HP isn't the best, so you do something like this. 0 speed, and like a Brave Nature. But even out of Trick Room, if you set up a Swords Dance with Shadow Sneak, it's still a priority move, so you can still threaten people outside of Trick Room. So it's really good. Definitely not a bad mon at all. And it has access to Terra as well. Porygon is still really good. Porygon Araquanid was a really popular strategy back in Sun and Moon. Araquanid's really worth mentioning because with the loss of Water Ogerpon, it can run Substitute again, because back then you'd have to run Leech Life. Otherwise, you'd just be completely walled by Water Absorb users, and have to sacrifice your Amoonguss matchup, or you'd run Substitute for the Amoonguss, and you'd sacrifice being walled by Ogerpon. So it was a really bad dilemma for it. But not anymore. Wide Guard is really good in this format against some of the spread attackers, as you've seen. Liquidation plus Mystic Water plus Water Bubble plus Terra Water, let's get the shiny in here, allows it to just really stack damage and hit really hard under Trick Room. And I really like its utility with Wide Guard in this format. And Wide Guard allows it to not be burned. I mean, Water Bubble allows it not to be burned, which is really nice into Incineroar. So really powerful Mon. I could definitely see it being used. I think it was really underrated in Regulation G as a Wide Guard Mon. But this format, I think it'll definitely see some play. It could still get intimidated, but overall, I still think Araquanid's really solid. Sometimes it's really hard to kill too. Having good special defense is really good in this format, I feel like. And it can be really hard to remove. It's also really slow. But yeah, Trick Room can be really, there's so many ways to set it up. I forgot to talk about Porygon, but Porygon loves to run Terra Blast in this format. Stab Terraplast with the download, it allows it to do a lot of damage. And with Eviolite and Recover, it can be very, very hard to remove in this format. We've lost Urshifu, so it made it so there's not too many fighting types in this format that can just hit it, which I think is really big. And then it has Ice Beam. You could run Terra Flying to hit Amoonguss, and then you could pair that with Ursaluna for the Earthquake. So it's really up to you. I think Porygon will definitely see some play. It's really bulky, especially in this format. In legendary formats, it doesn't have enough, even with this bulk, but lower power level formats, it really shines. So definitely worth considering the Rubber Ducky. So speaking of Trick Room, let's talk about some really powerful Trick Room users. Azumarill is very good, huge power. Assault Vest is usually what I like to run. And you go Play Rough. Aqua Jet is very good. Knock Off is very powerful. And then you'd run like Super Power. So it has really great coverage, really slow. Aqua Jet is hitting very hard. It has access to Terra as well. Overall, just a really hard-hitting Mon that's also a Fairy type. So that's really, really nice. You can always run the original Belly Drum set as well. Belly Drum Aqua Jet kills everything, which is really cool. And it's also just a really good Incineroar counter. Water Fairy is really nice into that, which is really cool. And it also allows you to resist Palafin, which is cool as well. And Dondozo. The one thing I forgot to mention with Dondozo is talking about Order Up as much. So you can wall that with the Fairy types. So that's really cool. Similar note, there is Primarina, which is really good. Liquid Voice plus Hyper Voice just hits really hard, especially with Assault Vest. Again, I think this is going to be a really great item in this format. It allows it to just be really bulky with the special defense. It's really slow. You can also run Energy Ball and Grass Terra to help against Amoonguss under Trick Room. And overall, it's just really good. It has Dazzling Gleam, hits decently hard. It has Ice Beam and Icy Wind, which is really cool. It also has Moonblast. Yeah, you probably run Moonblast instead. Yeah, so really good Mon under Trick Room for sure. It can hit very, very hard. You can also go with Leftovers and Calm Mind, which is not a bad idea. Go Calm Mind, Moonblast, and what's it called? I forgot the name of the move. Life Dew, and it can be really bulky as well. So another Mon to consider. Great typing in this format. Hits Incineroar and resists Palafin. So overall, it's going to be really, really good, I feel like. Smeargle is definitely better. Urshifu Rapid Strike destroyed this thing. It would usually run Focus Sash. But now that Urshifu is gone, it gets buffed. It still has Spore. Still has Spiky Shield. Does it get Burning Bulwark? Yes, it gets Burning Bulwark instead. Or Spiky Shield. Has Wide Guard. And probably even better is it has Decorate. Decorate can really help with Trick Room users. And overall, Smeargle will always be good. Especially now that Urshifu's gone, it's going to be much harder to deal with. Moody is another option it has. to be even slower, but it's kind of a roll though. I feel like if you want to be consistent, you go own tempo, but it's up to you. Smeargle can really help. Also has Follow Me, best move in doubles, arguably. And it just has every move in the game to be the best support mon. So I think this will be better than Incineroar on most Trick Room teams. It's really good. As for some more niche Trick Room users, I think Dragalge is interesting. It can stack damage with adaptability, choice specs, Terra Poison, or Dragon, and just hit really hard. Its special attack is not too bad at all, around 197. So, and it's really slow. So I think it could honestly be really good. It resists water, which is really cool. Something worth considering now that the power level has gone down. Also has a really good move pool. Has Scald, has Thunderbolt. Does it get Flamethrower? Has Shadow Ball. Let me see. Icy Wind. I really don't want to run that. Overall, yeah, it just can hit really hard under Trick Room, so it could probably serve a niche or two. Executor could be really good on Sunroom because you could send Indeedee out first. Let me go back. You could send Indeedee out first to set up the terrain, and then swap in Torkoal the next turn to activate Chlorophyll and Expanding Force. So it can be really fast and hit really hard, and you can't even use priority against it. And it resists Rillaboom, which is really nice. Although Rillaboom still has U-turns, so maybe it's not that free. But it's another really gimmicky strategy you could probably use on Ladder or the Global Challenge. So something to consider. Could be really good on Sunroom teams. And then Terra really helps it out too. Terra Blast, and then you normally go Ground on this style of team. It has Sleep Powder as well if you want to just win the game instantly or lose the game instantly, because if it misses, you kind of lose sometimes. Overall, it's just really good. Really fun strategy to use for sure. Rhyperior is another one where under Trick Room, it can sweep with the Rock Slide for sure. Has Solid Rock as well. Has Assault Vest. It can be a really good counter to Ursaluna to an extent. Then you normally run Grass Terra on this thing. Overall, this could be another Mon used on Trick Room teams with Terra. You can also go like Terra Rock, I guess, and just sweep teams. I wonder if Rampardos could be used as well. It is also really slow. And Sheer Force, Head Smash, does a ton of damage. You have Rock Slide, but Rock Slide can also miss. And you have Life Orb. So this is another rock type you can use. And rock is not too bad this format. You resist the normal types like Population Bomb and Hyper Voice. And what else? You can resist poison as well. Oh, the normal types, yeah, there's Extreme Speed from Dragonite, which is really good. So definitely a lot of attackers that have potential going in this format for sure. Next, let's talk about Tailwind. Tailwind hasn't gone anywhere. Murkrow is definitely not too bad going into this format. With Dondozo, Haze is really good, especially with Prankster. Parasong is another tool, because once Dondozo is out on the field, it can't switch out. So if you use Parasong, then it dies in 3 turns. So something to consider, especially late game, where if you knock out 2 Mons really early, you can just Parasong and then protect, stall, and switch around to win the game. And sometimes your opponent can't do anything. So Murkrow is really good, especially with Golden Go. It's another star Mon to consider. Make It Rain, Steel, Choice Specs, and it just has pretty much legendary-ish stats and a great ability. It's where you can't use Amoonguss against it. It's really good. You can run Choice Specs under Tailwind and immediately sweep games with Terra Steel. Or you can go more traditional and go with leftovers. Play a slower game, make it rain, shadow ball, protect, and nasty plot. So this mon is really great, this format, for sure. This mon is really great. It can sweep teams. They're still Incineroar. Palafin can also switch into it, so it's not completely free, but it is very, very powerful, especially with Tailwind. And it resists the normal types too, so not too bad. Whimsicott is very good. It's a mon that can be really frustrating to play against. Similar to Incineroar, it just has the perfect support move pool. It has Tailwind, it has Encore. Fake Tears can be really good with some of the special attackers that I'll be talking about. Overall, I think this mon will be really good. It can run Sunny Day if you really wanted to change the weather. And yeah, you also have Moonblast to be a fairy type if you really wanted to. So this is another mon you can run in this format that I think will be very good. It also has Taunt, very good. Endeavor. It's just really versatile. And online or in the global challenge, I feel like it will be really hard to play against because there's so many ways to run it. It could run 20 plus moves and be good. Talonflame is still pretty great with the loss of Raging Bolt that helped a lot. Tailwind, Quick Guard, Taunt, all great utility moves. Brave Bird is still hitting Amoonguss really, really hard. Yeah, so I think it'll be really good. I don't know if it'll be too great, but it definitely does get buffed in this format for sure. And yeah, you have like Focus Sash if you really wanted to. Really interesting. It's just a Gale Wings allows it to have priority moves on all its flying type moves if it's at full HP. So it's not as broken as X and Y, but it's definitely another Tailwind user you can consider. Salamence, another great one. You have Tailwind, which is really good. It can be really bulky with Roost, so it can be really hard to kill. Has Dragon Dance as well. And with the loss of fairy types, it really helps this guy out a lot. So I think overall this is just another Tailwind mon you can use. Really great stats. Yeah, Intimidate is amazing. If you're really interested in seeing what people run on this thing. This guy's also really good on rain teams because you can run Hurricane on it instead. It also has Hydro Pump. Oh, it got... I don't know why it gets Hydro Pump, but I guess it has that. And overall, it's just really good. Yeah, I don't really see too many other moves on this thing. It has Helping Hand. And yeah, Draco Meteor, usually. So, could be good on some rain teams. Glamora is really good still. Could be really great with Dondozo. I forgot to mention that earlier. But Meteor Beam plus Power Herb was something it didn't have in the past. But going into Regulation H, it's something it can use to be really powerful. It hits very hard, especially with Tailwind, because turn 1 you Meteor Beam, you get it off, you get a +1, and then you set up a Tailwind as well. And that can be, and this guy is just hitting you for so much damage. Toxic Debris helps a lot with Dondozo teams, because Dondozo just wants to sit there and like slowly burn down your resources. So, and then Grass Terror is really great with it defensively, and it can go Energy Ball like we've seen on some of the other mons. Grass Terror is just so good, this format, so it helps hit Palafin and avoid Amoonguss. Definitely a Tailwind mon worth considering. Some other ones, Sylveon gets buffed, for sure. Pixelate allows all its normal moves to turn into fairy types. So Hyper Voice becomes really powerful. Hyper Beam becomes really powerful. And it can also run like Shadow Ball. Or Terra Blast is also really great, because in the past it didn't have a great way of hitting certain steel and fire types. So Terra Blast allows it to hit Golden Go, and you can go something like Terra Fire on it. Or Ground, if you really wanted to. Or even Terra Water. It's up to you. Terra Blast allows it to give it extra coverage that it didn't have back then, where it would have to run Hidden Power Ground. But now it's has Terra Blast, which is really nice. And even if you don't Terra, Pixelate allows this to turn into a fairy type move. So there's no reason to really run Moonblast on this thing. So there's that. It also has Psychic as well. You can go Pixie Plate if you want to, or you can go Life Orb. And it really benefits from Tailwind because it's not super fast. Last video I said around 90 wasn't too great, but since there's no legendaries that are literally 150 speed or 135 speed like we saw with Miraidon and Koraidon, it's a little bit nicer for a lot of mons in this format. So I think Sylveon will be really good on some Tailwind teams. Can be really good into Dragonite as well. Mouse Ape, it can be really powerful into that. Overall, it's just pretty great. Although Moongus can be kind of awkward for it still. Hydreigon gets buffed. There's no broken Flutter Mane in this format, which is really nice for it. Has great stats. Dark is really good in this format, I feel like, because there are some really scary ghost types, as we'll talk here. It has Choice Specs. Dark Pulse is hitting very hard. It has Draco Meteor. It just has a really good move pool where it can go Earth Power, Flamethrower. It even has Flash Cannon for Sylveon if it really wants to. But Flamethrower is really good. It's a really good check into Golden Go if you set it up under Tailwind. This is 98 speed. And this is 84 speed. So Hydreigon definitely gets buffed. It's really good into Rillaboom as well to an extent. And yeah, it just hits very hard with the choice specs, and it has Terra as well. Porygon is something else to consider. Adaptability plus Terra Blast. And just stab. I don't know, you probably run Stellar on this thing too. It can hit really hard for sure. And it just has a great move pool. You have Electro Web. You have, what else do you have? You have Ice Beam. You have Nasty Plot, which is crazy. That's actually really crazy. It even has Discharge. What is going on with this thing? This thing hits very hard. It has Dark Pulse for Golden Go. This is definitely a mon to consider. A 90 speed under Tailwind is just beautiful. You could run, probably run Life Orb if you really wanted to. Yeah, this thing stacks damage like no other. This is insane the more I'm looking at it. Could be a really fun strategy to use. Is there any other moves? It gets Psychic as well. Icy Wind or Electro Web. It's your choice. So it can have some form of speed control. So with Terra adaptability and just this thing does a lot of damage. It's like the Dragalge of Tailwind. Basculegion gets buffed. There's no Xianpao, so that was a big threat to it because it could just press Sucker Punch and constantly threaten it. But now you don't have to worry about that. Last Respects is very good as a late game's cleaner, especially with Tailwind. Or you can just run the good old Choice Scarf, which is great. Adaptability as well. It could go Swift Swim under Rain with Pelipper. And it has Wave Crash. You have Crunch to deal with some of the ghost types. Heck, you even have Outrage if you really want it. And Ghost is really good at avoiding extreme speed, which I think is really powerful. So this guy can be really, really, really scary, I feel like. Speaking of Tailwind, we can't forget about Bramblegrass or Shiftry. They both have Wind Rider, which can be really good. I think they're both good in their own right. I can't even pronounce this. Oh my god. I can't speak. Okay, the pumpkin, it has Strength Sap, which is really good into Dondozo. This is really good. It has Shadow Sneak to deal with some of the ghost types to out-prioritize them, which is really nice. And overall, I think this is just a really good counter to Dondozo. Let me see. Yeah, it can hit really hard. It has a good attack stat. You can't use Icy Wind or Heat Wave against it because it's immune to it. Shiftry, on the other hand, has Sucker Punch and Swords Dance, which can be very good. And being a grass type is also very good into Amoonguss. The other thing I forgot to mention was Hydreigon's really good into a lot of Trick Room mons. because it just has Dark Pulse and some really powerful moves it can dish out into them. I'm still thinking about this guy. Terra Electric, adaptability with discharge. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, these two can also benefit from Tailwind, and they're normally going to run like Focus Sash. So not bad at all. This thing also has Disable, which is worth mentioning in this format with the amount of choice specs users and choice band users. So that's really good. Also has Power Whip. Yeah, so these two are also worth considering on your Tailwind teams. Let me see if Shift Tree has anything else. Has Endeavor because it has Focus Sash. I think it has Tailwind of its own as well. So there's that. So definitely consider those. Next up is Sand, the last archetype. I'm pretty sure I'm talking about. Yeah. Sand still has a place. T-Tart, it gets buffed because Urshifu's gone, Fluttermane's gone. Landorus was also really annoying for it to deal with because it could just U-turn out and then you would switch in a Weathermon and U-turn would do a decent amount of damage into it and force it to Terra. It was just really ugly. It gets a lot better. Basically legendary stats in a format where there are no legendaries, quote unquote. And pretty much it just gets a lot better. Assault Vest plus Sandstream, which boosts its special defense as a rock type, and its naturally good special defense, allows it to be pretty okay into Ursaluna and some of the other powerful special attackers in the format. Has great utility with knockoff. It has Rock Slide, of course. We can't forget about the Rock Lottery, where sometimes it misses and sometimes it hits and flinches both of your opponents. It has, let me see. Trying to look at all of its moves here. It has a really good move pool. It has Taunt if you want to run a different set. Terra Blast also helps it quite a lot because that gives it more coverage. Normally you would run Flying to hit a Moongus. You could also go like Psychic as an option. And overall, it just has a really good move pool, and Sand is also very good in this format for sure, because rock types are not that bad with the amount of normal types running around. And Dark is also really good into some of the scarier ghost types. Kamo is a very great partner for it, because you'd set up the Sand, you slowly whittle away your opponent, you go for iron defenses and body presses and be really hard to kill. Its Terra is a little more interesting, as well as its ability. Its Terra, since fairy types are pretty much not as popular anymore, it could run something like Fire to deal with Golden Go. It could run Steel. It's going to be really interesting. Maybe even like Fairy or Water. You could probably run Rock as well because of the Sandstorm boost. Really interesting to think about. But we'll see. I think last format, it definitely wanted to run Soundproof. Soundproof gave it pretty much full immunity to Fluttermane if it Terra'd into Steel. Couldn't hit it with Shadow Ball, and with Steel, it resisted all the fairy moves. And you'd run like Iron Head on it as well. So, but I think Overcoat's a little bit better just to deal with the Moongus. It's going to be really interesting. Dragon type is also not that bad to deal with Palafin as well. And Body Press, this is also really good into King Gambit as well. Good into Rillaboom. Just overall really solid if you really think about it. Definitely worth trying out. Lycanroc is still pretty good. Starting to get into Sand Rush users. You have a Cell Rock, it hits very hard. Rock type's really good into Incineroar. Has close combat, just a really good move pool. Play rough, so it can be a fairy type if it really wanted to. Sucker Punch, just a really good offensive rock type. It even has Taunt, it even has Swords Dance. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to run this dude. Excadrill is another one to think about. Steel Ground is really good because that allows you to resist normal types. Earthquake, Rock Slide. Well, actually, no, you don't want to run Earthquake anymore. Oops, out of date. Go Stomping Tantrum, Rock Slide, and you just be really fast under the sand. And then I'm going to talk about Arcanine as well. Arcanine can be a solid Mon in this format, especially with Choice Band. Choice Band you could usually run with Extreme Speed, and it would normally run Rock Slide. It was really good back then into Tornadus teams because you could just press Rock Slide and do a lot of damage to them. Good into Chi-Yu as well. But this format, I'm questioning it a little bit because it hits Incineroar, but I don't know if it's that good into some of these other Mons. But it can still be worth considering because it just does so much damage. Turn 1 is a lead, and it's really good with Sylveon. And then you go Terra Blast and be a Fairy type if you really wanted to. So, and then like Flare Blitz and even Rock Head Smash can do a ton of damage as well. So another Mon to consider on a Sand team going into this format. It's not bad at all. Garchomp is also not bad. Dragon is pretty good. Ground is pretty okay. Sandveil could probably go like Bright Powder if you really wanted to. Go Rock Slide. Let me see. It's really good into Ensign. Just another Mon to consider. I don't know if it's going to be as good as some others, but it is still pretty much a legendary in this format, and it's worth trying out. I think it gets, it has Swords Dance, it has Outrage, Dragon Claw, Crunch for ghost types. Not bad at all. Houndstone is basically like Basculegion, where it has Last Respects, which is really good, and Sand Rush and Focus Sash. It also has some really good moves as well. It has Howl to boost Como if you really want to, or even Tyranitar. Hisui and Arcanine, I forgot to mention, also has Howl. So if you wanted to run more of a support set, you could go with this. Intimidate. Houndstone has Howl, has Helping Hand, has Endeavor with Focus Sash. It can be a great late game cleaner, and it's also very good into Dragonite, which is really cool. And this is just yet another ghost type that King Gambit can eat in this format. Also has Play Rough as a move, if you really wanted to. But late game Last Respects is worth considering. It's a real threat in this format for sure. So get anything else. Has Shadow Sneak as priority. Has Will-O-Wisp as well. This one is really interesting. Its move pool is not bad at all. Last Respects is definitely its claim to fame though. And Klefki. Klefki is the only Prankster user in the format that can use Sandstorm. It also has access to Light Screen and Reflect, which is really cool. So it can be a Grimmsnarl of sorts for these types of teams. And it has Thunder Wave for a wait a minute. Thunder Wave for speed support. My mind is blanking. Also has Trick Room if you really want it. It's there. You could probably do some really cool stuff with Psych Up and Iron Defense if you really wanted to. It can be really good with Como-O, and it sets up the sand for some of the sand abusers of this format. Normally run like Dazzling Gleam on it. Let's see, does it get anything else? Not really. What does Fairy Lock do? It prevents you from switching. Has Foul Play, but it's probably not as powerful in this format as it was in Regulation G. But Prankster, Sandstorm, as well as Screens, it can be really good. It was definitely used in Regulation A. All right, last part of the list in this video is Mons that got buffed going into this format. Arcaludon is really good. It was really hard to kill before, even with Fluttermane and some other Mons. And it's really good in the rain, especially with Electro Shot. Assault Vest patches up its really meh special defense. So you can like go there, and it's really good into Ursaluna and some of the other special attackers. Dragon Pulse, Body Press can also be really good with Stamina. And it's really solid. It's really hard to kill this thing if it sets up. And overall, it's really, really good. It also has like Meteor Beam with Power Herb if you really want it, but I think Assault Vest is more consistent. And you can go Grass Terra on it. Really solid. Electroshot also hits Dondozo or forces it to Terra. So this is a good Mon to consider. Ninetales is another one. I'm going to put Ninetales and Grimmsnarl together. I think these two are really good. They have Aurora Veil, Light Clay, and Reflect Light Screen, which is really cool. And they can be really good support mons in the format. Freeze Dry is also really good because Dondozo doesn't have to worry about Iron Bundle anymore. Iron Bundle was a really good counter to it with Freeze Dry, but Ninetales can run it and do some sort of pressure. Really good. Sinistra is another really solid mon. Has really great stats. Machagacha burn stuff, which is really cool. It has Citrus Berry. It also has Trick Room and Rage Powder. It's not quite a Moongiz, but it's better in different ways, which I think is really powerful. Incin can be kind of awkward for it, but I think it's still a great support mon with Hospitality. The other thing with the Lola Ninetales is it can change the weather as well, which is really nice. And it'll be really good with Baxcalibur, which I'll talk about in a bit. Also has Helping Hand, which is really cool. And it can always just like spam Blizzard, so it's never a bad thing. But yeah, Sinistra I think could be really good into Dondozo. If you burn it, it also has Strength Sap as well. You can even go with the Nasty Plot set if you really want to. This one is a really solid mon to consider in this format. Volcarona is also really good stats. It has Flame Body with Rage Powder to be really good against physical attackers. And then it can go Quiver Dance and stuff like Heat Wave and Terra Blast to be also a good sweeper against special attackers. Bug is not too bad either, I think. This is the one format I think Bug could be very good, at least, because you can go Bug Buzz to hit the Dark types and the Psychic types that want to set up Trick Room. So definitely not a bad mon. I think this one is worth considering for sure. And you normally run Citrus Berry as well on it. And I think normally they run Water or Grass as the Terra. Really solid mon. Last is Meowscarada. You get Sucker Punch. Dark is really good in this format. Flower Trick can be very good into Dondozo. It has Taunt as utility, U-Turn, which is really nice, and it's also very, very fast. So, really interesting mon. It just has a lot of great tools at its disposal. Skill Swap, Substitute, Thunder Punch, Triple Axle. Can also go with that. I'm going to make one more because there are some other mons I want to consider real quick. Gastrodon could be really good counter into Dondozo as well as Palafin, especially with Fairy Terra. Dondozo can't really hit you with the other set I was talking about with the Wave Crash and Order Up. So this could be really good as a counterplay measure into some teams. It also gets Icy Wind, Earth Power, and I think it's actually pretty solid in this format. Hisuian Arcanine is main gimmick is Eruption and something like Choice Scarf. Can be really good, and Under the Sun with something like Whimsicott over here, it can be very good. And it can't be faked out because it's a ghost type, but you have to be very careful of King Gambit and other Sucker Punch users because of its ghost typing. So you normally want to run something like Fergaraf or Serena next to it, and I'll talk about Serena in a sec. But it can be really powerful to climb the ladder really quickly. I could see this one being used on Dondozo, so not a bad mon at all. Let me see. Especially in the sun, this could be pretty much the new Chi-Yu in a way. Sneasler could be really good on expanding force teams. It can hit pretty hard, especially with like close combat on it. Has access to coaching. Dire Claw can hit really hard against some of the fairy types. It can be really good, I think. Swords Dance, it has taunt. I think this format might be where it shines. And then it also has acrobatics as well. And like Flying Terra, maybe. Could be a cool tech on some of the psychic terrain teams. Clefairy is also pretty good. It's similar to Mousehold where it has Friend Guard and Follow Me. After You can be a great tool against Trick Room teams, which is pretty nice. Sing can win you games. There's some times where you can just... Clefairy doesn't have anything better to do. So it's a win-win situation where... Well, not a win-win, but it's like a win, nothing happens situation where you just press Sing. And if nothing happens, it doesn't really matter. But if you hit it, then you're in an amazing spot. So worth considering. There aren't as many taunt users in this format, I feel like. So I think it's a little bit better going into this one. And yeah, you run Eviolite on it for it to be really bulky. Really good support mon on the right team. Dragapult can be very good. Clear Body allows it to not be intimidated. And Dragon Darts can be very good. It can hit really hard with... It can be the ghost version of Dragonite with... Not Dragon Pulse. Darts. Darts, and you go Phantom Force, Terra Blast, and then you go Ghost Terra on it. And it can just do a lot of damage while not being faked out or intimidated. So worth considering. Also has Sucker Punch on it, which is really cool in this format. Helping Hand as well, although you probably wouldn't run it on this thing. And you also have U-Turn as a tool. So U-Turn or Sucker Punch is really your choice, but this thing can do a lot of damage with Terra and Choice Band. Gyarados is still pretty good. It's a great utility mon. It's probably good into Palafin. It has Taunt. It has Thunder Wave. And it has Waterfall. So the strategy is to Thunder Wave your opponent and flinch them with Waterfall. And just be a really annoying support mon to deal with Intimidate, has Citrus Berry. So this one could be pretty good into some Trick Room teams. And yeah, this one also has good special defense as well. So it's actually pretty solid. It's good into Incineroar too. Gyarados is not bad at all. Could definitely be worth using. Corviknight and Bronzong are really similar, where they're steel types that aren't weak to ground, so it's really good into Ursaluna. Corviknight is a little bit better because Raging Bolt is gone, as well as Iron Hands, which were really awkward for it. There aren't too many electric types that are going to threaten it. So you can run Bulk Up. You can run Roost. Just be really tanky. It has Brave Bird as well, and it also has Body Press. So Mirror Armor allows it to not be intimidated either, which is really, really nice. So I think it's a little bit better. It doesn't have to worry about its move pool, about its move slots as much, because you normally have to run Iron Head on it to deal with Flutter Mane and stuff. It has Tailwind and Taunt too, which can be pretty nice. But overall, I think this one could be worth using and thinking about, especially with Leftovers. Bronzong's really similar. Leftovers, Iron Defense, Body Press, and then it has Trick Room for support, and Gyro Ball. Could be really good. There aren't as many broken ghost types like Fluttermane and Calyrex to really threaten it. There are some ghost types here, but it's not too bad. It can run Poison as well. And this is really good into King Gambit. It's really good into Incineroar. And also can be really good into Ursaluna. You could also run Safeguard. That's another tool it has against Amoonguss. Could also run like Water Terra if you really wanted to. Maybe even Dragon. Hold on. Dragon could be alright. But this mon can be really difficult to remove from the field. It's another body press iron defense user. Bax is really good. Great into Dragonite. Great into Rillaboom. Glide Rush can hit very hard with the right support. Has Dragon Dance or Swords Dance. And yep, it also has Freeze Dry to hit Dondozo. I don't know how good that is, but Glide Rush plus its stats can be really good, especially with Clear Amulet. And it's no slouch, so it can actually be pretty okay into Incineroar. This thing just does a ton of damage, and it's really good with Ninetales. Gothitelle is worth considering too. Shadow Tag is really cool. You have Taunt to lock in stuff like Clefairy and Amoonguss and some of these other support mons, and just kind of lock in certain mons and take certain threats out. There are some ghost types in this format, but it still can be really good because there isn't stuff that's just hitting it super hard. It can go for Protect, and there isn't Urshifu, which I think is really big. And there's no Flutter Mane, and Calyrex to just switch out whenever it wants to. So there's a lot of mons to look at that it can lock in, maybe not Annihilate and Mimikyu and Basket Legion. But it can definitely do work. I can definitely see it doing stuff in this format. It also has Trick Room and Fake Out. So on the right team, I think this could be really good, especially with Ursaluna. You could probably lock in a certain lead with Ursaluna, set up Trick Room, go for like Helping Hand. But it doesn't have anti-priority like some of the other Trick Room users, but it's worth considering. Citrus Berry is really good. Decent stats. Not too bad. Weezing, it has neutralizing gas to stop abilities, which is pretty cool. I don't know if it'll be as good because I think Weezing's really powerful with mons that have really good stats but don't care about their ability. Like some of the Paradox mons, I think it was really great with. It's still worth considering. I think the other Weezing might be better, just so you're not weak to Golden Go. It still has Will-O-Wisp. It still has like Pain Split as an option. It has Haze, which is really cool. I think the biggest thing with Weezing is its ability to shut down Dondozo with Commander. And that was another reason why I think Gothitelle could be good, because Dondozo can't switch in for free, which is really good. So Weezing, it is similar to that, where it can just shut off Dondozo. It can shut off certain Farigiraf teams, because I think abilities are pretty powerful, as well as some of the expanding force users, especially with Dark Terror. This thing is a nightmare to remove for them. And then you go to Gunk Shot usually, and Citrus Berry. The pure support, you have Haze, you also have Taunt, which is pretty good. Yeah, so Weezing, similar to Gothitelle, can shut down certain archetypes. Rotom, let's talk about some of Rotom's forms. I think they're pretty solid. Rotom Wash is kind of like a legendary, really bulky. Give it some HP. And it's pretty linear what it wants to run a majority of the time. You want to run Will-O-Wisp, Hydro Pump for sure, and then like Thunderbolt majority of the time, which is really cool. It also has Nasty Plot this generation, which is kind of crazy. I don't know if that's this generation thing, but I never thought this thing run Nasty Plot. But it has Light Screen, which is pretty cool. It can run dual screens. It has Electro Web for speed support, which is pretty cool. You can even go Hex to combo with Will-O-Wisp if you want to. Just some stuff you can consider. It also usually runs like Volt Switch sometimes as well. And I've seen some sets run Rest because it is really bulky to take down. And it has Terra as well. So it's really cool. You could probably go like Terra Electric and have no weaknesses plus Stab. So Rotom Wash, not too bad. Rotom Heat is another one to consider. It has Overheat, so you could probably run like a Jetpack on it if you really wanted to. And it also has Will-O-Wisp. It has pretty much the same thing, Electro Web, Thunderbolt or Volt Switch, depending on how you want to run it. And it also has some really great moves as well. But it's pretty much the same, except Overheat can combo with the Jetpack really well and be really good in the sun. So, and it has Terra, just like all the other monsters from it. It even has Helping Hand, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, it also has Trick. So if you wanted to run something like Scarf on any of the Rotom forms, you could run Trick on it as well. And then I think Rotom Grass is also pretty good. Leaf Storm could be really good into Palafin as well as Dondozo. So it is actually pretty alright and worth considering. I can see this one being pretty good on Tailwind. It even has Nasty Plot, which is really cool. Thunder, and then also it also has Terra Blast, which is really nice for Rotom forms, I feel like, because they kind of lack certain coverage moves, as you can see. Like, we don't have a Fairy move, we don't have a Ice move on this guy. So having Terra Blast can be really, really good for this mon. And Grass is just really good in this format as a Terra type and just into certain mons like Dondozo and Palafin. So Rotom can be pretty good. Now for the last ones of the video that I kind of forgot to mention, just some honorable mentions. Zoroark can be very good. I think Milotic is another one, as well as Serena. And oops, I forgot to. Okay, we are on Reg H. That's good. I think those were like the main three that I forgot about. Kind of looking through this really quickly. Oh yeah, it's a Titan. So Zoroark can be really good. I think on Dondozo teams, Illusion plus Zoroark, it can be really good on closed team sheet and the global challenge, kind of like what I was saying, so closed team sheet online. This could be really good, especially with explosion strategies. So you can go Explosion. Oh yeah, we can talk about Garganacl too. You can go Explosion next to Zoroark, like Terra Normal. Let me see. Who gets Explosion that's really crazy? Metagross, kind of. Let me see. It's a good attack stat. Oh, it's probably Metagross. So like Metagross, you know, you go normal Terra, and then you go Explosion, which can be kind of crazy. And maybe like Scarf. I don't know. Clear body, so you can't intimidate it. Just some really gimmicky stuff you could use. It's also a ghost type, which is really cool in this format. It has Hyper Voice, so it can actually hit pretty hard. And Icy Wind as well for support. Not a bad mon. Not a bad mon at all, I don't think. Special attack has good speed. Definitely worth considering on a few closed team sheet teams, for sure, especially on Dondozo. Melodic's still pretty good, competitive, Icy Wind. Scald is very good into all the Intimidate users like Arcanine, Incineroar. Even Salamence if you run an Ice move. It also has Coil and Hypnosis, which is pretty nice. And it can also run like Recover, so this thing can be really hard to remove, especially in this format. And Citrus Berry. Or you can just go pure support with Icy Wind, and even you can run Life Dew on it as a concept. Really interesting mon in this format. Serena can be really good with Queenly Majesty, so you stop a lot of the priority. So we not only have this, Bruxish, and Farigiraf as options, and I think it could also be pretty good. It has like Triple Axle. It's a grass type, so it doesn't have to worry about a Moongus or Palafin as much. And like Power Whip to be really good. Grass is just really valuable this format. Run like Low Kick, Play Rough. Yeah, there's certain offensive moves it can run, and it's just really good with this ability. So Titan can run Belly Drum on it, which is really cool. And it also has Ice Shard. And it can also be run on Snow with Slush Rush, so could see play. Feels a little meh though, but it could definitely work. Gurganackle can also work as a hard mon to remove from the field. Rock is pretty good into the normal types of this format. There aren't too many fighting types. Let me take a look. There's Annihilate. There's Body Press users. So it's not too bad. Yeah, it's actually, there aren't too many fighting types this format that are worth talking about. So it has Wide Guard, which can be pretty cool. You can't poison it, and it's also immune to Ghost. Oh wait, it's not immune, but it takes less from Ghost. Purifying Salt. Oh, I mean Salt Cure. Y'all, it's just the end of the video. Bear with me. So Salt Cure, Wide Guard, and then Recover. And it can just be really, really difficult to remove for some teams and can be decent support. So wonder what the shiny looks like. That looks like baked bread. It looks cool, I guess. And you can run leftovers. So I think this could also be pretty good depending on what type of team you run. But it can be very difficult to remove. Also, 35 speed, really slow. Overall, I can see this one being pretty okay on some teams. Metagross is also another one, kind of what I've mentioned. But I think instead, Scissor is also not too bad. It has U-Turn. It has Bullet Punch to deal with some of the fairy types. And no, some of the rock types mainly. And Bug Bite can also be really good into some Trick Room users. With Technician and what's it called? Choice Band. I don't think this one will be that bad at all. It could be used for sure. And that's basically it on the video. I hope you can find this useful, especially those who are wanting to play Regulation H. Just some teams and some mons to consider, and then some archetypes. Then some buffed mons to consider on teams that could be really niche and useful. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video.